If you've ever worried about getting knocked off or having someone steal your designs, you are going to love this episode. Today, we are talking all about plagiarism and how to deal with it, especially when someone is blatantly knocking off or ripping off your designs. I love this episode, particularly because I was pitched by a member of our community, Alex Camacho, and her other friends who are in a plagiarism group on Facebook, Michelle Prebick and Ariel Salsa. And they came together to do a panel discussion to talk a little bit more about their experience and what's happened when they've been knocked off in their business. And it's a really interesting conversation. And it kind of takes a lot of twists and turns. So I think you're going to really love it. Before we dive in, let me introduce myself. I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive Academy and the host of the Thrive by Design podcast. We help jewelry designers, makers, and other product business owners create financial security for themselves and their family using our methodology called the Desired Brand Effect. And in that methodology, it is really about positioning yourself as someone different and unique. And so I know how frustrating it can be when you are scrolling on Instagram or something and you're like, what the heck? That's my jewelry and that is not my Instagram account. Like, what is going on? So we're going to dive deep into this conversation. I think you're really going to like it. And if you'd like more jewelry business tips, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you enjoyed this conversation. All right, let's dive in to today's episode. Hey there, it's Tracy here, host of Thrive by Design, and I'm super excited to have a very interesting group of designers on the show today to talk about a topic that comes up a lot inside of our community, and that is copycats and plagiarism. So I want to welcome Alex Camacho, Ariel Salsa, and Michelle Prebick. Did I say your last name right, Michelle?
Pribage. It's a weird one.
Okay, sorry. Michelle Pribage. Welcome to the show. So before we dive in, I would love for all of you to just kind of give yourself a little introduction of who you are and kind of a little background about your company. So Michelle, why don't you start us off?
Well, my name is Michelle Pribage. I run Bat in Your Belfry. I'm the artist slash business person who does anything and everything. So you order something from me, I designed it, I package it, I took the photos, you name it. So I'm on Etsy and Instagram. And when it's not a global pandemic, which is hopefully, dying down here, I'm usually at Southern California, like conventions and shows and things like that.
Amazing. Ariel, let's hear a little bit about you and your business.
I'm Ariel, and my brand is The Pretty Cult. I am kind of like Michelle. I do everything, but I'm predominantly a clothing designer and screen printer. All my stuff is made here in LA. Everything is very inspired by tarot, witchcraft, and rock and roll. I like to say my brand's for the rock and roll witch. So yeah, similar. I have an actual web store. I'm on Instagram, all the social media. And when it's not a pandemic, I also do a lot of events. I do a lot of music festivals, tattoo conventions, stuff like that. So yeah, predominantly clothing and apparel, as well as in the past year, really expanded into like homeware and candles and things like that.
Amazing. And Alex. I think everyone knows Alex. Been on this podcast many times.
You mentioned me a lot and I very much appreciate it. Thank you. But my name is Alex Camacho. I'm the owner and designer of Acid Queen Jewelry. It's a silver, it's all silver, mostly one of a kind and production work, silver and gemstones. And it's very much about like the metaphysical properties of the gemstones and like bringing the power within all my customers and making them feel like confident and empowered and beautiful. So, yeah, I'm in Idlewild, California. I was going to say LA and I'm like, I'm not there anymore. And unlike the other two, you will not find me at mini shows because I don't do a ton, but I will be at as many as I can in the coming future. You can also find me on Instagram at acidqueenjewelry.com and www.acidqueenjewelry.com. Wait, Instagram Acid Queen Jewelry. Sorry.
we got it. We'll link it all in the show notes. We're good. Okay. So we got a little background about your business. Alex came to me because I know Alex very well. She was in our Momentum program for a couple of years. her business grew tremendously during that time. I'm so proud of her because she's just a total rock star and like putting herself out there. And she came to me about this conversation about plagiarism. She said, Tracy, would you be interested in having a conversation? I know some other people who have had people rip them off just like me, and we want to start this conversation. So Alex, why don't you give us a little background about what kind of inspired this?
Yeah, so actually I'm in an Instagram pod with other makers that we all know within our group of a community of artists. And I actually had DM'd my one friend, and I was pissed off because she had commented on this other girl's Instagram of things that like I had made before. And I like looked at all her past stuff and I'm like, no, like I don't make this stuff anymore, but this is how I started. And she's kind of like taking my trajectory. And it just kind of happened previous, like a couple weeks before that, someone else had blatantly stole a design that I actively sell. And I confronted them, and I'm always really nice and everything. But anyway, so I was talking to my friend, and then she's like, I've been thinking about bringing up this. I've been having these conversations with a lot of other artists in all different realms of like makers, whether it's jewelry or clothing design, pins, art, prints, everything. And she was like, this is like a larger issue. And I think it'll be a really good, like great opportunity for everybody to be able to discuss it. And by opening up this communication and like really bringing this conversation to light, like maybe it will help other designers, it will help to bring awareness, and it will help to bring us together in a way that like we can be more positive about it as opposed to accusatory or anything like that. And so that's where it was born. And that was done by our friend Lindsay, who does Lively Ghost, and she's amazing. She's an amazing artist. So I wanted to give her the credit for that. And she put it all together. She brought all of us together, and we did a week-long campaign where we were speaking about all kinds of different things, our different experiences. And I really think that, with some negative comments here and there, it actually was so uplifting and amazing. And it really like just made me feel so solid with this community. And it, with all the struggles that I have with Instagram, there's so much positive that can come out of it too.
Yeah.
And that's really what we try to focus on with that.
That's amazing. So Ariel, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened to you?
So my situation was a little bit different than Alex's. I've had everything from the straight, my brand is very heavy artwork right? Tarot cards. In addition to my own design, I do a lot of tarot cards, a lot of my own art. And I've had, my first instance was a straight design, exact replica. It's a slogan that's very, very popular to my brand that I am currently actually, the process, it's almost done. I own the trademark, so you can't use that slogan. Down to my color combinations. I sell it on a couple different types of products, color combos, just completely took everything. And that was my first time of really being like, oh, wow. And the reason I found it is because a customer tagged me thinking it was mine, like being nice and giving me a shout out, was like, can't wait to buy this. And I was like, that's not mine. Where did you get that? So, that one was hard. And I did go through the process of reaching out, and sadly in that situation, that person was not very, wasn't very kind about it. Also, one thing, I think maybe a lot of newer business owners don't realize is that there are things such as trademarks and copyrights. And that's something I, as myself, from the beginning to now, anytime I have a new idea, I do my research. I always do my research. Has it been done? Is there something similar? If it has been done, at this point, I don't approach it at all. If I'm not really seeing something, or maybe there's something similar. I think Alex said this, which was amazing. If you're inspired by something, you have to make sure you make 3 different adjustments at least to make it your own. And I definitely feel that I follow that as well. So that one really sucked, to be honest, in navigating that and dealing with a trademark and stuff like that. And then the other kind of more ongoing thing is the tarot art. So my tarot art gets more and more often is just being taken and used wherever people feel. And I understand that one might be a bit confusing because tarot, there's so many tarot cards and so much tarot art in the world. However, you know, you posting or sharing is different than using it for monetary value. Yes. The most recent issue was I sell a lot of patches. That's kind of how my brand started. I had a lot of tarot patches, and I guess people don't understand that just because you buy the patch doesn't mean that you just go make it into whatever and sell it as your own, because you are selling a copyrighted piece of art. So that's something is really new for me, and I've had to like navigate. All of my designs are copyrighted, but just kind of having that conversation. And the one person who did that actually I reached out to them privately, and the person was actually super receptive, apologetic, and was like, I didn't even think of that or realize that. I'm so sorry. And thank you. She thanked me, actually. She was like, thank you for educating me. That's something that just didn't even cross my mind. I just saw this beautiful piece and wanted to put it on something and sell it. And I'm like, no, like, I appreciate, like, it was a very positive conversation. She was like, she even wrote me back like a few days later and was like, I just spent like the past 3 days, like researching what copyright is and how you can copyright and stuff like that. And I was like, that's great. You know, like, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad about themselves or, you know, but it was really awesome that she was willing to educate, aside from apologizing, educate herself and be a better business person she knows how to protect her own self now with copyright, but also not infringing on others.
Yeah. Thank you. And Michelle, what was your experience like?
My experience, I'm very much piggybacking on Ariel. All my work is copywritten. I do a lot of like dark content inspired by the macabre and history and things like that. And one of my more popular like subjects that I've been doing for a long time, since my brand started in like 2012, is the subject of plague doctors. And they are something from history, but these are very much my drawings of them, and they are copywritten drawings, of course. So the one particular thing that has, pun intended, plagued me, has been my, dumb, I do enamel pins, and I have a particular enamel pin design that's fairly popular, and for a while was the only one up on Etsy, actually, of a plague doctor. So I imagine that's why he got a little bit of traction. But it's, you know, my own drawing. This guy, mostly last year, ironically, has been ripped off and posted up on certain websites I won't name, that are mostly like scam oriented shops that you just need to pay and they're up, and overseas like wholesale buying websites, I'll say, that they've been jacking like just the review photos from my Etsy and posting them up as their shop's own like reviews and selling. I don't even know if the people are getting the pin or if they're just being scammed, but it's awful. And unfortunately with those type of things, like, it's kind of like a Hydra. You cut off one head, then you report them or whatever, and like 3 more pop up. So I've been myself just trying to educate people like, hey, you know, this is where you get it from. This is the original product. I have authorized distributors and salespeople in shops. And, you know, that's where you can get it. And honestly, that's the best thing I can do. I can't lose too much sleep over it, because sometimes those things are just kind of out of your control, and you just kind of deal, and hopefully people learn, you know?
Yeah. So I want to ask you guys, because Alex said something in the initial interview, or the initial interview, the kind of recap of what was going on, because about the difference kind of between copying and plagiarism versus like being inspired by something. So what are your guys' thoughts? And you guys can just choose who goes first here, if anyone has anything to say.
Well,
yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I was going to say, in reference to what Ariel was talking about with the the rule of three. And I'm sure I heard it somewhere, but I also thought that I came up with it, but
who knows?
And it's been a philosophy that I actually have held on to since I started. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday with this graphic artist, and he's worked with a lot of different companies, and he referenced this book called Steal Like an Artist. I have not read it. But he was talking about like the premise of the book, and what it is about is basically like, how are you inspired by an artist or as an artist by other artists? And then you use that as inspiration, but you don't steal that exact design. Mm-hmm. And it kind of plays within that idea of the rule of three. Like when I started with found object jewelry. I would get like charms from downtown LA and all this different stuff. And I was like, let's say I had like a snake charm, like I would have to drill the hole at the top, change the orientation, cut this thing off. Like I had to do 3 things to make it my own, so that even if someone got that same charm and did the same thing, that it wouldn't be maybe the same 3 things that I did, or it would be differentiated. And so I think the whole premise is like, you can take inspiration from so many different places, but the important part is that you're always putting an aspect of yourself into it, because that's what makes true art. That's what makes authentic art. And I think that I'm so honored to be surrounded by so many authentic artists, because it's like, it blows my mind how much creativity like everybody has. And I think that if we're always trying to like play with that rule of like, make it your own, put a part of yourself into it, that we will always as artists be able to avoid blatantly stealing from somebody, even if it's by accident, so that's
super powerful. And I love the conversation about inspiration, because, if you're making it your own by doing the changes or the 3 things that like really make it your own, but it's really like, Robin and I used to say this when we started Flourish and Thrive, like a circle is a circle is a circle is a circle. Like the wheel was invented like so long ago, and you don't own a circle. Like just because you make jewelry with a circular element doesn't mean that someone ripped you off. It's your interpretation of the circle, right? Mm-hmm. So, and how you make it your own. Michelle and Ariel, do you have anything else to add to that?
At the end of the day, everyone has this unique filter and perspective to life. I'm going to go off. You'd mentioned a snake charm. The subject of a snake. How I execute a drawing of a snake is going to be different from how Ariel may execute a drawing or interpretation of a snake versus Alex. Like just because, as you say, a circle is a circle, you can be inspired and flood yourself with images of inspiration. Like, just because something inspires you and makes you want to draw that subject doesn't mean you're plagiarizing it, because it's your own filter. But if you're straight up copying line work, that's a different problem. So that to me is like plagiarism versus inspiration.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a funny one because I make a lot of all black clothing. And at the end of the day, everyone there's so many all black clothing brands. And I've actually gotten to the point for me to make sure that I'm not even subconsciously, I'm seeing images and I don't realize that I'm inspired, and then I make something and it looks very similar, that I don't even follow accounts sometimes that are within the same aesthetic or similar, because I don't want to be accidentally too closely inspired to something, because some of what I do, there's so many black dresses in the world, but similar, as Michelle said, like the tarot art, part of the reason why I love tarot art so much is because everyone has their own interpretation. If all of 4 of us made our own lover's card, every single one's going to be different, even though it's the same subject, because we all are inspired differently, or that card has a different meaning to us entirely. So I do think there's nothing wrong with being inspired by other people, and it's what keeps us like fed in a sense as artists. But also I try not to be too precious with my art. A direct ripoff is a direct ripoff, but I try not to be too precious with it, because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's just art. It's my how I feel about it. And if someone else is inspired by that, great. Of course, please don't direct rip off. But if I'm being, inspiring you, that's awesome. Just be mindful.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really funny. If you're listening to the audio, you're not seeing this, but we're all wearing black right now. It'd be kind of funny if I was wearing like hot pink or something and it was very clear. Okay. So earlier, you all kind of mentioned like how you reach out to someone. Like, let's say you suspect someone's kind of copying you. What's some advice that you would give people to like actually like authentically reach out in a way that doesn't put them on the spot? And I want to give you some context here. When I first started my jewelry line, or like in the earlier days, so this is probably like about 5 or 6 years in, I was still living in San Francisco. I landed this account called the Sundance Catalog. And I got a cease and desist letter from a maker who said that I copied their work because the Sundance picked up a piece of my jewelry that looked like theirs. But it was a theme that was kind of happening in time. Like Indian architecture was really popular and it was a huge trend that was going on. And so I designed this Marquise ring. A designer accused me of ripping theirs off. I'd never even heard of this person before. And they're trying to like sue me for doing, nothing happened. Like it never went anywhere. And I also called the catalog because in the note, they said that they were going to notify the Sundance Catalog. And I was kind of like, this is a new account. Like I need to make sure that they know that I'm legit. Sundance didn't do anything. They're like, this happens to us all the time. People think they're ripped off all the time. Like, you're good. Don't worry about it. And we continued a very long relationship after that with many, many designs and stuff like that. But so like when you're reaching out to someone, like what's your process for kind of doing that? Or what has it been if you suspect you're being kind of ripped off? Ariel, you might have the best way to have like such a blatant copy.
I'm going to be super honest. I've done it the wrong way and I've done it the right way.
Okay, let's hear the wrong way and the right way.
I'll be honest about the wrong way. The wrong way is blasting them on social media. Don't do it. It's our gut reaction. We've been hurt. For the context of this one, this was the direct ripoff. Okay. So naturally I was very hurt. I was very reactionary. I did reach out and I just said, this is my design. I would appreciate it if you took it down. All items with this design need to be removed. I do have a trademark in process. As you can see, I've had this design. I gave them the date that my design came out. However, in the wrong way of doing it, I did not wait for the response because I was so upset. I put it on story and I tagged and said, this person is ripping me off. And naturally, the followers went to the page. I do not recommend that. Even though your followers love you and think that they are defending you, the bad part of it is it comes off, intentional or not, as bullying. And obviously never, ever advocate for bullying. So as upset and as horrible, if they give you a horrible email and rude response back, never, ever blast them. Never, ever do it. So that was the bad way. The good way was I private messaged. I came in with a very nice tone. And I just said, I so appreciate, I went the other way, kind of killed them with kindness. I said, I'm so appreciative that you were inspired by my tarot design to make what you did out of it. However, the issue lies that these are copyrighted designs and you did not make the item for personal use. You made it for your company and you're selling it and monetizing off of it. And tagging me so it almost looks like a collab that I signed off on it, but I'm not making any money. I don't know about it. Unfortunately, this is infringing on the copyright laws, and I would appreciate it if you take it down. And that was met naturally with a much better response. My third one is I went the nice way and they refused to respond to me. So I was giving it some time. Thankfully, Instagram took down what it was. But had they not, I would have had to have a lawyer reach out.
Yeah.
So I've had all three variants on that one.
Alex or Michelle, do you have anything else any experience with this, or how have you handled it?
I mean, so I've had many conversations like this from the very beginning to now, and they've been different conversations where I realize that I'm making something super similar to somebody else, totally unknowing. And then I reached out to them and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do you think this is okay? Are you okay with this? Blah, blah. And I was also met with somebody who's not very nice. So, like that was that situation. I've had many situations where I've reached out to people, always private, always like non-accusatory. Listen, this is a business. This is what I do. I understand you may have been inspired by me, or maybe you don't know of me, but this is this design. I made it this date. Here's my documentation. But unfortunately, unlike both Ariel and Michelle, I can't copyright a lot of my stuff. Mm-hmm. And this was an issue and a discussion that came up within that week that we were in the comments section. Of course, there's always a contrarian. And I actually private messaged this person on my own because I wanted to explain my experience. It's like, well, as a graphic designer or as someone who makes something that's like print or clothing, like there's certain things that you can copyright. As a person who makes 80 to 90 one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry a month, in addition to pieces that I don't know if they're going to work out. I don't know, like there's so much risk with me copywriting my stuff monetarily wise that it's not worth it for me as a business to do that. So it's like from my end, I don't have as much recourse, but that's why these conversations are really important. And so most of the time when I have reached out, these people have been super nice and like, I didn't even know, I'm super sorry. I'll sell this one and then I won't make it again, blah, blah, not a big deal. And then some people, like I said, have been like, so I've had one person that says, why would I even copy your jewelry? It's not even that cool. So like people have,
they're talking to you.
and here's the thing is like, I have to, at the end of the day, just like Ariel, I have to say, it's art. And I started off making one-of-a-kind jewelry to protect myself in this way because no one can do as many pieces as I do looking exactly in the same realm because that's what I do, So it's having these conversations, all of these things, and just kind of, working through every situation as it comes in the best way possible, having as much light and love and support as you can. And if someone is a jerk to you, they don't deserve your time anyways, So it's like, we just have to always lead with kindness. And I think these conversations will get easier, but the more we discuss them as artists, then I think those things get less scary for other people too,
Thank you. And Michelle, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's cathartic to talk about our, woes. I think as a group, we all agree that Artists Against Plagiarism group was kind of a nice, like, okay, I'm not the only one, or this has happened. How do you deal with this? How do you talk about it? How do you educate these people who don't seem to understand? And it's healthy to talk about those type of things and kind of vent and release as an artist. I will say I had one interesting experience a year or two ago. I stumbled across somebody had done string art of one of my Plague Doctor paintings I had done. Like it was very interesting. Like they took string and made it from nails back to back, the art. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly my painting. And I kindly reached out to them like, hi, don't know if you know. And they said, oh, my friend got it off of, I think they said Pinterest or something. This image, didn't know where it came from, thought it was public domain. And I'm like, nope, that's mine. And they were
they printed it.
Huh?
They printed it out and then made art with it?
They made this string art, yeah. And they said they'd made one for themselves and for their friend for a birthday. And they asked permission, can I still give this gift to my friend for their birthday? And that's it. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And they're like, can I send you one? So they actually made one for me and sent me one. And I thought that was really nice. It could have been a bad experience, but it was actually a really sweet experience. Like that, I'll end on that positive note. It was nice.
Yeah. This just like reminded me of that. Like I was on, I did this live stream with Cosmopolitan like a couple of years ago, like right when Facebook Live kind of started as a thing. And there were a bunch of like Cosmo, like skews very young and like their users are young. So it's like a lot of young people. And I was like sketching engagement rings like live there. And this one girl, she said to me later, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to like be here. I had my boyfriend like copy one of your pieces. My engagement. I mean, wait, what can you do? I was like, well, you know that that's like against the law, but I'm flattered, I guess. I don't know. At the end of the day, I mean, like, what are you going to do? It's like the attorney fees would cost more than it would to actually like get like paid for the ring. So at a certain place, you have to get, and so brings me back to kind of to what Alex said, you can't copyright all your pieces, like, or officially do it, because there is something out there. Like once you put work out into the world, you own that copyright. But I think what you were speaking about is having it registered, because it costs a lot of money to have it registered.
Yeah, I was talking about, because that's why Instagram is such an amazing tool, because it's basically like documentation of our stuff and when we produce it. So like, for instance, there was one item, or when this whole discussion started with Lindsay, and I was talking to her about this artist, and I was like, no, she's like making stuff that I'm like, let me show you. I sat for like 10 minutes on my Instagram going back to like the beginning, which is like, like 10 years ago. And I'm like, I sent a screenshot. I'm like, do you see? And she's like, oh, okay. Like, I totally see what you're talking about. But that's why I love Instagram, and why not only is it a tool for me to share stuff, but it's documentation, living documentation of like my progression and my stuff, and when I've made it and when I'm working on it and all of that different stuff. So it's super important too.
I think that's great. So I want to know, like, what are you guys doing like now to protect yourself from getting ripped off again? Or like, what are some actions or measures that you would recommend for other artists? Because artists, designers, makers, whatever it might be, because like Alex said, it's a lot easier and more cost effective to copyright a piece of art that you're reproducing over and over again on a painting or a t-shirt or clothing or whatever it might be, than it is to copyright one of a kind jewelry. That's just like cost prohibitive. It's not going to happen. So what are some recommendations that you would give to people listening to this to protect themselves and their intellectual property?
Me?
Whoever wants to go first.
I mean, I really don't have a lot of tips, to be honest, because at the end of the day, someone could still steal from me. And, if it was a large company, I don't like I'm sure there's certain ways that I have to deal with it and things like that. But I think that just being, luckily I have an amazing following. I have an amazing customer base. Every single one of these instances, I have been notified by one of them. So it is, so I think that just really making a strong community with the people who follow you, so that they want to protect you and like educate you just as much as like you want to do the same for them. And then I think just for me personally, I would just say you have to handle every situation as it comes, and just have a super open mind, open heart, and be able to confront the situation when it needs to be confronted. Always be nice, and be open to what the other person says, but also be strong and really like be confident behind the work that you're producing. So that's my advice.
I love that. Michelle or Ariel, do you have anything?
I would say for a business owner who's maybe more in my field than Alex is, copywriting, do it.
Yeah.
Go the right way if you're able to. I will say, thankfully, copyright is much more cost effective than trademark. Mm-hmm. Trademarks are very expensive, and I understand that is not an option for a lot of people. But for copywriting, they actually do allow you to do up to 10 images under one filing fee. So a lot of people don't know that. I learned that when I started doing all mine. So if that's something that you're able to do, it just really will protect you and make you feel you'll sleep a little easier at night, just knowing you have that official paperwork from the government to protect you should you ever need to, unfortunately, contact someone or get a lawyer. I also know that if anyone listening runs Google Ads, Google actually will allow you to submit your paperwork. They can't control Google Images, because that's just, there would be no way. However, if you are somehow involved with Google Ads, you can submit paperwork. I just learned this like last week. And if another company, like some of these more scam ones, try and upload, it will automatically trigger and it won't allow them. So there are legal ways to protect yourself if you have a type of business where you're able to do that, you know, like illustrations, or you're the first one to literally think of something. You'd be surprised and you're searching and nobody has that idea, or you've never seen it. You can copyright it. Our friend Lindsay did that actually. She has these rad collars and nobody had it, like in the color compos, nothing. And she was able to copyright it. So yeah. And like Alex said, Instagram is great for that paper trail, that physical proof with those dates, you know, if you ever need it. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would just basically like what Ariel was selling, because I do, prints and illustration based things that you can easily copyright, like in bulk or as single images. Definitely do that, especially if it's like something that's near and dear to your brand. Please do that. It will save you, like RSL, so much sleep. Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning as I go. Actually, I feel like I just learned a lot from Ariel right now. So I don't know if I have much else to add to that, but do your homework. You know, fees suck, but they help keep you protected.
Do your research. I love it. Do your homework, do your research. I love it. Any final words of advice I guess the best way to put it is, because like you're all experienced designers and makers. You've been doing this for a long time. So I know that when people are starting out in any industry, right, they're looking for inspiration and grasping at straws. Like any final words of advice to people who are feeling inspired by others to help them keep their designs or their process clean, so they're not accidentally ripping someone off?
You know, I think I was talking to my husband about this the other day, and I was like, you know, I'm about to do this podcast and all this stuff, and we were talking about it. And I was, you know, I used to look at other jewelry designers, and when I was in metalsmithing classes and everything, I would try to remake things that I had seen, but it was more to like test my skill level and to test like where I was like, let's see if I can do this. And looking back, I wish I would have had the foresight to reach out to those designers if I had the option to just be like, hey, like you might not ever see this again or like or ever before, but can I like just try and like remake your design as like a, you know, a sample or whatever? Because what if I did put it on Instagram and someone saw that and then their heart, you know, they freak out because somebody's copying them or something like that. So I think that, you know, if you want to like try something out or you want to whatever, and it's just for you, I think that's totally fine in the exploration of inspiration. But I think that there's a huge difference of when you start to try to make money off of something. And the first thing that I always do if I have a new idea, like with my crystal ball necklace, I looked high and low when I first designed that. Does somebody have something like this? And you know what? They didn't. And I made it and I love it. And I still sell it to this day. It's been a very long time. And I did the research and made sure that it did not exist. And I think that just like a combination of doing your research, if you're going to make money off something, it has to be your own. Put a little bit of yourself into everything you do. And I think that you'll stay on the right path. And if you ever do have a question of someone that you're inspired by, just reach out to them, because I guarantee they're super nice and super helpful. And they're going to be like so honored that you're inspired by them if you have a question about something too. So that's my final thoughts on it all.
Awesome. Michelle?
Yeah.
In regards to advice for people first starting out, you had mentioned, funny enough, Alex, about wanting to use somebody else's work as a learning tool. And I think that's really interesting. It makes me think back to, I took like one art class in college and they made us like copy one of the masters. Like you had to mimic one of their paintings. It was an assignment. It's not like you were going to sell it and make money off of it. But I think it's a very good tool that like, if something inspires you, you can use that as a tool. But the minute you start making money off of something that's not yours, that's the problem. So you want to find your voice, and it takes time to find your voice. And some of the best advice I was ever given was from a professor who said, don't expect anything the first 5 years of whatever you're doing. It takes time, dedication, and your journey will change. What you think might have been your artistic voice might be something very different in a few years. And it's just go with it and explore. That's all I could really say.
That's definitely true. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Where can everyone find you? Michelle, do you want to go first?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, Bat in Your Belfry, or Etsy, batinyourBelfry.etsy.com. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Ariel.
I'm on Instagram, good old TikTok, Facebook, all of that. And the website, everything is just at The Pretty Cult and theprettycult.com.
Love it. And Alex.
And same for me. You can pretty much find me anywhere at Acid Queen Jewelry and acidqueenjewelry.com. And thank you so much for letting us discuss this topic today.
You are so welcome. I'm glad that you brought it for me. I love it when people pitch me ideas. So if you're listening and you want to pitch me an idea, pitch it, because usually I'll say yes. Thanks, ladies. Thank you so much for watching the show today. If you enjoyed what you heard today, make sure that you like this video, and in the comments below, share with me your biggest takeaway. That is huge. Plus, I would also love to invite you to take the next step with your jewelry or product business. If you're struggling to kind of reach the right audience and get out there and or scale your sales online and off, building a strong multi-channel business, I would love to invite you to apply for a free strategy audit. On that audit, we're going to take a look at the goals that you have for your business. So we'll cast a really big vision for the next 3 years, take a look at what it is that you're trying to create in your business. Then we are going to take a look at what you're currently doing and identify what's going on and what is supporting that and what is not supporting that. One of the things that I've noticed with the thousands of jewelry designers that I've supported over the years is a lot of times they keep trying different things and they're trying to get traction in their business, but they don't understand where the gaps are, where the problems are in their business that are preventing them from actually reaching those goals. So the objective of the strategy audit is to take a look at your current strategy and help you identify what needs to shift and change in order for you to kind of reach those big goals that you're trying to achieve. So once we do that, we're going to identify what needs to happen in order for you to reach those goals to move forward. And if it makes sense, we'll invite you to join us in one of our programs. And if that sounds good and you'd like to learn more, head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/strategy for more info today. Thanks so much. This is Tracy signing off. Until next time.